Welcome to What the World Needs Now with hosts Tom Whisinnand and Josh Monroe. We hope you're able to leave feeling encouraged and ready for another day of changing lives in the field of education as we speak with inspirational teachers from across the nation and world about what keeps their spark lit.
In this episode, Jenessa Bointy, an award-winning school counselor from Oklahoma, shares her passion for loving others no matter where they are. Without any further ado, Jenessa Bointy. Cool.
All right, Jenessa, thank you so much for being with us tonight. For those that are listening that don't have the privilege of knowing you, would you mind introducing yourself to us? Where are you from? Who are you? And what's your role in education?
Okay, well, I'm Jenessa Bointy. I currently live in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is just a little suburb outside of Oklahoma City, but I grew up in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and I'm a mom of four. I have four pretty great kids. My oldest son, he's 18. He's a freshman in college, and I actually had him when I was a junior in high school. And then I have an 11-year-old son, a 7-year-old son that has both ADHD and autism, and then my daughter's 5. And I was a teacher for 3 years. I taught kindergarten, first and second grade. Before that, I actually was a substitute teacher, and I worked as a teacher's assistant with special education while I was still getting my degree. I had to work full time. I did the single mom thing while I was in college. And then I have been a school counselor for about 9 years. And then in November, I got the opportunity to work for our Oklahoma State Department of Education with the student support team on a really great grant called Project Aware, which brings mental health services to school districts in our state that have been identified as mental health deserts. They don't have enough access to school counselors, social workers, licensed mental health therapists. And so that's what I get to do now. And it's pretty amazing.
That's awesome. That's really, really intriguing to hear the term mental health deserts.
Yeah.
Because there isn't.
Yeah. And I think that COVID, with, how our schools have managed during the last year, some schools in smaller districts, they are, in person 5 days a week, wearing masks and things like that. My kids work, or they go in a school district where they are hybrid. They get to go to school 2 days a week, and then they're virtual the other, 3 days during the week. But just that in itself, some parents, have not felt safe. They've pulled their kids out. They're doing just like online virtual charter schools and trying to homeschool their kids themselves the best they can. So there's just been so much change the last year that has brought on even more, like mental health needs. I think it's just kind of, they've always been there, but maybe they've been brought to the surface with the pandemic. And for our smaller school districts that don't have access to school counselors. I work with one school district. They only have one school counselor in the whole school district in the high school, so those other kids in middle school and elementary schools, they don't have access to a school counselor, and neither do their teachers, who are so overworked right now. I mean, they're just doing the best they can every day, just burning it at both ends. And so to be able to go in and provide these resources and to also train the staff, is a lot of what we do is just training the staff on youth mental health first aid and trauma-based relational interventions, and just a lot of those other things. Parent education is a big part of it. Just shining a light on it and helping reduce the stigma when we talk about mental health in schools, and putting those resources in place just to empower those educators and those parents and those students to have a voice and, feel like if they need help with something, they can reach out and ask for it. It's totally okay to do that, and it's encouraged, So just being able to put those programs and services and resources in place, and just knowing how necessary they are, like they really could help save a life. It's just amazing that I get to be a part of that, but it's good work.
You got your hands going in a lot of different directions there. I'm going to pause for a second. Like that district that only has one counselor, I'm curious about the teachers at the elementary and middle school level. Are they teaching counseling lessons? Is there somebody that kids go to if they need some support, or is that all on the teacher? Because I know that our students rely on our counselor for some of those things, and our counselor applies for different grants for different resources to get to our school. So what's that look like there?
So in this, like, I'm working with 3 different school districts right now, this grant, these 3 school districts. And so in the district where we just have the one high school counselor, I have, tried to get some more information about the way that they just kind of run their ship. All school districts are different leadership and whatnot, but those teachers they're not providing any like social emotional learning curriculum. If those kids need something, they are just going to the teacher. There's no one there to like help do those things. And I don't even know as far as, like 504 plans, things like that. Those are things as a school counselor I was responsible for in the schools that I worked at. And the other districts that I work in, they have their set of challenges too. So there's another districts that I work with, their elementary counselors, they actually are responsible for teacher evaluations. I just learned this last week and I was like so shocked, because I don't even know how you would build relationships with your staff to help advocate for them and to help, let them know you're in their corner when you're the one that's like giving them their evaluation to say, how well they've done. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not how school counselors should be utilized. It's a really poor use of our role in the school. And then those same school counselors that are doing those evaluations, they don't get to go into those classrooms to teach like social emotional learning curriculum, character first, personal safety curriculum even. Those students aren't getting that. And it's just a shame.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really hard when we're going through this and there's so much uncertainty. What school looks like, what life looks like, right? It's just crazy that we're going through this pandemic and we've been going through it and hopefully we're on the tail end of it. But when we come out of it, the needs, the emotional needs, the psychological needs of, I think, these students that are in our schools or virtual schools every day will be huge. And so kudos to you for really jumping on that kind of ahead of the game and getting to know the needs of those districts that you'll be working with. I think that's just phenomenal. So your passion is just evident, like it's just jumping out of the screen. But what got you into education? What said, that's it, I want to be a teacher? You mentioned that you were in education a little bit before you got your degree, but what led you down that trail of being this award-winning, amazing educator that you are?
Like initially it sounds really, my initial reason for going into education, being a single mom, was that by the time I graduate college, my son will start kindergarten and then I won't need daycare anymore. Like I will be able to, like our schedules will line up. I can just be there for him, go to the baseball games, all those things. So initially that's kind of where I went with that. I come from a family where I'm the first one to ever go to college. So my dad didn't finish high school and he was an alcoholic. He struggled with addiction and drug abuse. We lived in poverty. There were times we didn't have running water or electricity. Like if a snowstorm like this would have hit when I was younger, it just would have been a nightmare. We lots of times went without, just food, just those basic needs. And so that's just what really motivated me to like go to college and make something of myself, because I just wanted to like create a life where my own children didn't have to grow up like me. And so my oldest son is a freshman in college now. He got a 3.0 his first semester. I'm so proud of him. And it's just like, I just feel like I broke that like generational poverty. I feel like I broke that cycle of addiction. And I'm not saying those things to like toot my own horn, but I'm just really proud that like my kids will never have to live like that. And I use my own story and my journey. Sometimes I'm able to relate to other students, other parents, things like that. I've worked in an alternative education high school where I've been able to tell these kids, like, your neighborhood does not define you. Like, I see the challenges you face right now, but like you can be so much more than that. Like, you get to choose where you go from there. You get to choose how your story ends. And if you work hard, if you're nice to people, like, you can change your life. We all have the power to change our own life. And so going forward, like, that's really what got me into like counseling. It's another kind of situational thing, but my dad passed away about a month after I graduated college, and I didn't have any way to like pay for his funeral. And so I actually went to grad school to take out student loan money just to pay for my dad's funeral. And it was just the right thing to do at the right time. And I'm just really thankful that was an option. And I have this education. I've met amazing people. I have great friends, and I am able to use, all of these hardships that I face, all of this adversity, to just help empower other people.
I don't think that it's ever tooting your own horn when you tell your story, because a lot of our students are going to see ourselves in your story, just like you were saying. I don't have the exact background, but I work at the school that I went to, and we didn't live in poverty, but we definitely weren't rich. Like, we were lower class. And being able to relate to your students like that and let them see, hey, if you work hard and you put your heart where it's meant to be, you're going to do great things in life. And talk about what led you towards school and towards counseling. Has there ever been a time, though, during your career when maybe that fire and that passion started to dwindle? And if so, what'd you do to reignite it?
I mean, I've definitely, there's been like one school in particular that I worked at, and it just wasn't it wasn't a healthy climate for educators. There wasn't a great leadership. I mean, I've only worked in Title I schools. So schools that, were poor, that had children, lots of free and reduced lunch, lots of public housing. And that's like really where my passion is, because I just go to work every day knowing that, like, I'm going to be nice to all the kids, even the students that are, have a lot of behavioral challenges, things like that. They're going through so much. You don't know what their story is at home. And just to be able to reach out and be kind to them, over and over again until they give you an opportunity to like shine your light on them. And you don't know how long that will take sometimes, but it makes a difference and it's worth it. That's really like where my passion lies. Those kids that are hard to connect with. I hate it even when people are like, oh, they're just, seeking attention. They're just attention seeking. And I just really like to reframe that and be like, no, they're connection seeking. Like they're lacking something, and just trying to get to kids to tell us like, what do you need? Just tell me what you need. And when they will finally, shed some light on that and tell you their story, is really when you're able to like open up and try to create those relationships with the parents. Because I feel like, especially when you're working in those lower income schools that have a lot of needs, we've got to build those relationships with parents. We've got to build that trust with parents. We've got to treat them like they're an expert on their child, so they trust us when we say, there are some resources out there to help you with this. Like, you're not alone. Like, we both want what's best for your child, and a lot of times that means helping the family system, putting some resources and some supports in place for the family system in order for the child to succeed.
I just absolutely love when you said they're not attention seeking, they're relationship seeking. Every behavior that we see from a child serves a purpose.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that purpose is, hey, look at me. Hey, I'm here. I'm right in front of you. Care for me. Show me you care for me. And sometimes those hardest behaviors, the hardest kids you see, are the ones that will yell and scream out the hardest and loudest for that. And sometimes in the most inappropriate ways.
Yep.
What you said is absolutely true, that we need to look at the relationship seeking instead of the attention seeking. Jenessa, that just got me really good, because that is so true. It got me good. Yeah. And then I think what you said too about finding those opportunities, Dr. Kiernan, a superintendent out in New Jersey, called them, Josh, what did he call them? Coincidences, but there's a special word for it.
Meaningful coincidences.
Meaningful coincidences. And when we run into a kid in the hallway, we need to take advantage of that meaningful coincidence. There's a reason you're in the hallway and I'm in the hallway at the same time. Hey, nice shoes, bud. And maybe that nice shoes comment turns into a conversation where we start building that relationship. So everything you're saying, I love. It's absolutely spot on. And that's probably why you do what you do, and you're so darn good at what you do, but so spot on. So you're out of the classroom, so to speak, kind of, and going into the state level. But so you've been successful at building relationships, not just with kids, not just with parents, the larger school community. How do you do that? Like, what are the silver bullets that you've found at building relationships with students, with parents, with the larger community that you'd share with us?
Well, especially with students, I mean, I really just believe connection before content. And that's something that I help teachers understand too. And I totally believe in like the Maslow's before the Blooms. We have to make sure those basic needs are met, that love and belonging is there, before we expect kids to come to school, ready to ace that math test, or, to put forth that hard work to, become a better reader. We just have to show kids that we care. We just have to really You know, there have been times kids have come into my class as a school counselor when I was teaching social emotional learning lessons on a special schedule, and they come in my class, and I mean, you just see they're tired, and there were times that like little ones would fall asleep. I would just let them sleep if that's what they needed. I mean, that's what they needed at the time, you know, and I wasn't going to push them. And you know, the same thing with our teachers. Our teachers just go through so much. I have worked with teachers, they're going through divorces. They have spouses that are facing addiction. They are caring for dying parents. They've lost children. Teachers are people. Teachers are human too. They have so much going on in their lives that they leave at the door when they come in to take care of kids. You know, it's more than just, you know, those are my students. You'll hear so many teachers, and me too. I'm like, those are my kids. And I'm sure you, Tom, being the educator that you are, those are your kids, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And so just finding out, I mean, just finding out what they need and just trying to find out their story. Just, I mean, really getting to know kids, like trying to know them by their name, by their strength, by their need, just things like that. And for teachers too, I mean, being there and just thinking, hey, like, what do you need? Finding out any way I could help support them, because I know they're going through so much. And, you know, these kids too, you have so much like compassion fatigue when you get to know these kids' stories, and you just have this vicarious trauma sometimes that you live through with these kids when you feel like you can only do so much for them. Just, you know, just helping them like really focus in on like what they can do that day and being present that day. And just making sure that kids go home every day and they feel like they were safe at school. They feel like they were seen. They feel like they were valued while they were with you. And that's just what I try to do with everybody. I love just hearing people's stories. Everyone has one. And I think that's just a big part of like making a connection with people, whether it be, you know, your students, your parents, your teachers. That's just how I connect with people. And, you know, I think that we've all gone through so much, and just giving people the opportunity to share their stories and just to empower them to just, you know, keep up the hard work, the good fight, you know, it matters.
How do you think we get teachers to understand that Tom says it best, I think, go slow to go fast mentality when you walk in on the first day of school and your administration is, here's your pacing guide, don't forget that you've got a map test, you've got this assessment, and at the end of the year your kids better pass that state mandated test. How do we get teachers to understand that importance of hold off on that for a second, dive into really getting to know your kids, because if they know you love them, they're going to go battle for you each and every day.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I've worked with administrators that don't have that same mindset. And I've worked with teachers that are tired, you know, because they are just spinning. I mean, they're going all the time. And I try to just lead by example and just put a smile on my face and show kindness and compassion and empathy for everybody. And I mean, I try to, you know, make these conversations happen with teachers naturally. I don't ever want a teacher to feel like I'm trying to tell them how to do their job. I don't ever want to do that, but I definitely think there are opportunities that we can all just do things a little differently, you know, and just getting teachers to recognize that if they will take the time to make those connections and just really embed the social emotional learning competencies like just into just their regular routine, how much different they'll see their classroom is run, and how a lot of times they'll end up getting more instructional time back because they're not having to face, you know, all of those little behaviors. They'll just kind of take care of themselves when you create that classroom environment where everyone is respected, everyone is loved, everyone is seen and heard. You really do get to teach more, and you get to have more fun with your class when they respect you and they respect each other, and you make it like a little family, because really that's what it is. You've got to spend 9 months of the year with each other. You have to just create an environment where it's, you know, as fun and comfortable as possible.
You brought up social emotional competencies, and I find that, excuse me, when I loved social emotional learning for the kids, loved it. Here's the curriculum, and we used Harmony in my classroom, and it was amazing. But the biggest transformation that I ever saw in my classroom was when I fully grasped that the social emotional competencies aren't just for children. Jenessa, it was like a light bulb went off and my classroom just exploded. And it was amazing because once I really understood that these social emotional competencies are for me as well,
Yep.
children picked up on it, and my relationships with my peers blossomed and my coworkers blossomed. And I think what you're saying is absolutely true. Getting teachers to recognize that it's not just a curriculum, it should be embedded in every interaction that your students have with each other, that it should be embedded in the interactions that you as a professional, that we as professionals have with each other.
Yeah.
I just think that is absolutely powerful, powerful stuff. If you can have a community that really embraces that concept, you're on your way to great, great things. And then, you know, the test scores kind of take care of themselves, because these children will do anything for you. And when you get kids that go home and say, man, school was fun today, here's what we did, I felt loved, I felt encouraged, then the parents start coming around to that side and saying, well, what's going on? Because it's not sometimes that way in school, right? So yeah, that's amazing. That's absolutely powerful, powerful stuff you're preaching right there.
Yeah, that's one of the amazing things that I get to do now with my position working for the state, is I get to go into these school districts, you know, even the ones right now where there's no counselor there to do those lessons, that, you know, I get to go in and help these teachers understand, like, this isn't something, it's not one more thing to do. I'm not adding something extra to your plate. If you'll, you know, just trust me, and, you know, there's a couple of things that you can do. Just the dialogue we have with kids sometimes can make such a difference, you know, on the relationship we have with them, that they will start to slowly see this transformation, you know, in their students and in their classrooms. And then, you know, we can get our community partners that we work with to recognize that too. And so I'm just excited that I get to do that now, and, you know, have that bigger impact, because those kids that are going to grow up in those school systems where they are, you know, they're learning those social emotional learning competencies, those are going to carry throughout their lifetime. They're going to carry into adulthood. They are going to be much better equipped throughout adulthood to, you know, handle, you know, conflict and healthier relationships, which a lot of kids don't have modeled for them at home. Those are just some things that they can learn with that. That's really, really important.
Earlier, you were talking about building trust, not just with students, but also with parents. What advice would you give, especially to early in their career educators? Because I know when I was just beginning, one, I didn't truly understand the importance of that relationship, and I paid for it. Two, in the beginning of my career, I wasn't a parent, so I didn't want them to feel like I was saying, hey, I know what's best for your kid, listen to me. And three, sometimes there's parents that just don't like school and they're not going to trust us. So what advice would you give? How do we build those healthy relationships without coming across as being judgmental?
Oh yeah. Well, I just want to say too, like in the beginning of my career, I was 24 years old when I became a teacher, but I was also the mother of a 7-year-old. So some parents, you know, were much older than me. But I had kind of more experience, if you will, you know, so being young, they didn't give me a lot of, they just didn't give me the proper like respect that I deserved for, like, you know, being where I was and doing what I was doing at the time. So that was a hurdle that I definitely had to overcome. But I feel like, you know, when I worked in the classroom and I got to know the kids, you know, they'll drop little hints about things here or there. You know, when a kid had a new sibling at home, for example, you know, little kids oftentimes they'll have a new baby brother or sister. I would always just call the parent, call the family, and just, you know, check on the mom, check on the family. Like, how are you doing? How's the baby? That's so exciting. Jenny's talking about her new little brother. And I mean, being a new parent's super exhausting. And then you have, you know, other children too. And so just finding out like, hey, do you need anything? Can we set up a meal train, or you have everything that you need? Just things like that. Just doing just little things to show that you care. And you know, I've worked with students too, where they'll come to school and they don't have a coat. They don't have, you know, their shoes are falling apart. And we were fortunate enough to have a pretty nice closet to like give kids like brand new shoes, coats, things like that. And I'm not judging, because I know these parents are working hard. I mean, I just kind of live my life with everyone's doing the best they can with what they've got. You know, I think every parent loves their child. And again, like they might not have had a model to teach them how to be a great parent, but that doesn't mean they love their child any less. And so just calling and saying, hey, you know, is it okay if I give Jimmy a new pair of shoes? You know, we have 100 pairs of shoes in our pantry and I noticed that his are a little tight. Would that be okay with you? and not coming at it as like judgmental, because it's totally not. Like to that kid too, like it'll just brighten his whole life by giving these kids a pair of shoes. There was one little boy in particular during like an assembly, I noticed he needed some new shoes. And so I took him down and I let him pick some new ones out. And he like was rocking and rolling back to the gym. And he was like, look what Miss Bointy gave me. Check out my new shoes. Just little things like that. I mean, they're going to remember those, but it just made him feel like king of the world that day, and there are a lot of other resources that parents have needed, whether it be like food or assistance with electric bills, things like that. I've always been like the queen of resources. And so I know a lot of different resources within the community, churches, nonprofits. And I've always, on the schools that I've worked at, I've tried to put that information, where parents can access it if they need to, but also just letting them know like, hey, if you have something else, you can come to me. Like, I'm not going to judge you, because I know that, we're all just doing the best we can. And, you just want what's best for your kid. And just having that ongoing communication with parents as much as possible was just really important, and just being just super empathetic and knowing that like I've been in those situations too as a child, and even as a single mom while I was in college, there were times that I just needed some help. We all just need some help sometimes, and like that is okay. There's people out there that want to bless you with that help, and if you don't ask for it, and you're not giving them the opportunity to be a blessing to you.
It's hard sometimes to be appreciative. I think that's something that sometimes as adults, it would be well for us to just step back and let people show us those blessings or be helpful. And sometimes our pride gets in the way.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard sometimes to let people do nice things for us. I don't need
it.
I don't know if that's an American thing or where that comes from, but it is. I can take care of myself. Thank you, but no thank you. So that's absolutely true, that sometimes that's hard to accept help.
I think too, sometimes people feel guilty or they feel ashamed that they aren't able to provide those things for their kids. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but there are people that want to help you. And lots of times, we can find a way to, get kids and families what they need. And, if you can just do that one time, it really helps strengthen that relationship, and they'll come back to you for other things, and they'll be more open to communicate with you. And I mean, the child is really the one who wins.
And I like that you're talking about building relationships with parents the same way we do with students, calling them and saying congratulations on the new baby, or at the beginning of the year, making sure that you take time to call every parent and tell them something great that their kid did.
Absolutely.
I did that this year, and the mom picked up and she got really worried until I told her the story of how her kid was helping somebody else at recess. She goes, well, I saw the number and I thought that he was going to be in trouble. And I was like,
yep.
that's not what's going to happen this year. Yeah. We're going to celebrate the positives.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, are they hurt? Are they in trouble? What'd they do? You're like, no, like this is a good phone call, and I feel like if you try to do that early on as much as possible, maybe if you have to make a hard phone call home, it's much more well received, because they feel like you care about their kid.
And I think that that's how we start to change the culture in our community too, of viewing school as this great place to be, where kids love to go, is involving everybody in the greatness that's happening.
Yeah. I believe making parents partners in education as much as possible.
Absolutely. Jenessa, we're in Omaha and you're in Oklahoma, and it is freezing cold in Omaha and Oklahoma right now. So one thing that the world, in our part of the world, needs is heat. We need to be warm.
Yeah.
But other than that, what is it that the world needs now? You're a great educator. You're so passionate, and I'm thrilled that you have this adventure with the Oklahoma State Department of Education. Like, this is just amazing. So from your point of view, what do we need as a world?
I think now more than ever, we just have to have compassion and empathy and grace. No one a year ago would have ever known that our world was just going to be completely turned upside down. Everything has changed. Education has changed. The way we go to the grocery store has changed. The way you renew your driver's license has changed. And you just have to be patient. Just be kind. You don't know what other people are going through. You don't know if they've lost their jobs. You don't know if they've had to move. They've lost a loved one to COVID. You just don't know. You never know where you're meeting people at. And it costs nothing to be kind, to put a smile on your face, to try and help if they'll let you, to just be as empathetic as possible. We all benefit from that, because I know that there are times that, you know, I've just been able to like go take a couple extra steps to show that kindness to people. And I mean, it filled their cup. It made them feel great, but it also like, it made me feel good too. When I take that extra time to be nice to someone, or, you know, just go that extra mile, like it's just as good for me and my soul as it is for that other person. And you just can't go wrong with kindness. You just really can't. Like there's never a time that you're going to regret showing kindness and being nice to somebody. And that's what we need right now in this world. Just kindness, compassion, empathy. We will all benefit from those things.
And I think remembering that all three of those things are free.
Absolutely. They cost nothing.
Yeah. Well, Jenessa, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad I had an opportunity to get to know you and hear your story. So thank you for being here.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for inviting me to, you know, come on and talk with you guys. This was great.
Good luck with your new adventure. And yeah, thanks again. We always, Josh and I say, every Tuesday night we look forward to so much because the rest of the week flies by. We're inspired, and you just did an absolute fantastic job with us. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys. Stay warm, stay safe.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. Thanks for tuning in this week. Hopefully you're ready for another week of changing lives. We're so thankful and appreciative that you took time to listen to our guest, Jenessa Bointy.
We hope that as you head out, you remember that the biggest factor that plays into student success is you. Your love, your passion, your empathy, your dedication is exactly what the world needs now. Thank you for all you do. Have a good one.